Well, welcome everybody. Glad you could come to the New Tracks Meetup this Wednesday, the April 22nd, 21st. Appreciate so much you coming. Hope you enjoy the show. I think you will. And please invite your friends to join us. If you're new to the show, please register at our website, newtracksmodeling.com. That's newtracksmodeling.com. And you will immediately receive an email. And if you confirm that email, then you are totally registered and you'll receive all of our notices in the future about the shows and what we're doing. I have a couple of announcements I'd like to make. There is the PCR, Pacific Coast Region's 2021 convention on April the 24th. This is supposedly going to really be something. I've registered for it. I hope that you'll register for it. It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and goes till 10 o'clock at night. So we're still going to have our show on the 24th, but that show will be conflict in the evening, that part of the evening for us. So if you miss our show because of that, then you can always watch our show on YouTube, the video of it later on. But I encourage you to go to the PCR 2021 convention because it's a sample of what you will find for the national NMRA convention later this year. So it should be really something to see, and they put a lot of time and effort into it. Phil Edholm has been heavily involved in it, and I know Phil is really high on what's been accomplished and thinks it's really going to be something for everybody. Second show that I found out about is the O-Scale National. This is going to be in Denver, Colorado on June the 17th through the 19th. One of the benefits by going to this show is they're raffling off a brass Challenger 4664 in O-Scale. If you register early, then you get eight tickets to win that engine. And if you register later, you get 4 tickets. And if you register the day of the show, then you get 1 ticket. So the earlier you register, the more chances you have of winning the O-Scale Brass Challenge. But I know that the people that are involved in the convention have put in a tremendous amount of time and effort. We've had them on the show before talking about it a little bit, but evidently they have committed. The funds, the hotel is paid for, everything is ready to go. And they do say that on June the 17th to the 19th, the show will take off in Denver, Colorado. I want to talk a little bit about the build-along projects. Today, Clark Cooning and his downtown deco is going to be on Chris's My Bill section. And Clark just finished up the last of his segments on that My Bill, or that build-along. Bob Farquhar and Dale Rush's Blair Line structure are going on right now. Gaylord Gill and Randy Bosler's session is going on right now. Second one will be the one coming up this Saturday on both of those. Starting the 22nd of May, or next month, Rick and Maureen Hunter are going to be building their Hunter Line 30-foot King Truss Bridge. And that ought to be an exciting show to see. Then we've got Bill Davis and Steve Milley, rail scale modelers, starting in this fall. Martin Breckbill MMR is building a Leadville design kit starting this fall. And the one that I'm really excited about this fall is the Motrax model build along. It's going to have 4 separate modelers building the same exact model in 4 scales, N, H, O, S, and O. Then we have Banter Models is going to be the manufacturer. I haven't got a person to do that yet, and I'm looking for somebody to do the Banter model. And if you're interested, please contact me. But that'll be probably in mid to late October. So today we have the My Build, and I want to turn this over to Chris and let him talk about it a little bit and run the My Bill part that really is limited to just those people that built along with Clark in his downtown deco kit. So Chris, I will turn this over to you, sir, and let you run the My Bill for Clark Coon.
All right, thanks, Jim. Got a little slide thing I put together here to talk about where we're going with all this. You've got, if I did this right, am I sharing?
I see you.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm not sharing. My apologies for that. Let me go back and fix this real quick here.
Yeah, I gave you permission, so you should be able to.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Clark is here now if you want him to take care of it.
What's that?
Clark is here now.
I
Okay.
say, but Chris handles the My Bills. But Clark, welcome, and please feel free to to chime in and be a part of it. Because this is only for builders that built along with your project.
All right. For some reason, this thing's not sharing tonight. Crap. I apologize for that. Had some computer issues today. So we're going to start out. I'm just going to go over our future plans here. Jim mentioned a bunch of it. If you're interested in participating in the My Builds, please either drop me an email, and I'll put that in the chat function here in a second, or drop me a message, and we will be sure to get you in there. And I'm putting it in the chat right now, so it should be up there for everybody to see. I did get a couple pictures from some people. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'll give it a try. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. My slideshow did pop up. It just took a little bit.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So here's my email address, railrunner130@hotmail.com, or you can drop me a message in the chat function on Zoom to reserve your My Build time slot.
It doesn't look like a model train.
I was in a hurry when I built this up, and I'm like, oh, there's a picture of Clark showing off a fish. Good enough. So we'll throw that in. At least it's something you'd be proud of. All right. So now, if you're taking a look at, if you're keeping track of what's going on, we've got the dish or the washing machine going on in the background. We've got the Bar Mills 1 kit that is currently being done, along with the Bob Farquhar's doing the Blair Line General Store. But anyway, back to the Bar Mills kit for a second. There's a $25 raffle that we will do on the My Build, and it's got to be of that kit. And it's also one of the rules, it's got to be something that you've done. Looking ahead, May 22nd, you've got the Hunters presenting one of their Hunter line products, the 30-foot King Truss Bridge. May 29th will be the next My Build, followed by the July 24th My Build. Then we go on to August 28th, where MoTrack Models is going to bring us 4 modelers and 4 different scales. The kit is yet to be determined. October 9th, Martin Breckbiel will do a Leadville Designs kit. Not sure what that's going to look like yet, but hang on for further details. October 27th, there is a Banta Models kit that will be done. And then beginning November 2nd, Bill Davis will do a Rail Scale Models kit that has yet to be determined. And let me see if I can switch over and grab. I think I need to switch screens on this. And then, okay, I've gotten a couple of photos here. And I apologize in my haste here. think this was, is it Bill Patterson? Is that correct? That did this?
I think
Oh, it's
that's,
Don.
I think that's Don's photo, Chris.
Okay.
This, go ahead.
Yes.
What is-
Anyway, this is the kit that he did. His version of the downtown deco kit, and we also received this from him as well. He did a great job with the Gray Street Company House kit from Conowingo Models. You see he managed to put not only a front porch light on there, but he managed to light the first floor of it. So I think he did a great job with that. So, all right, I'll go back and see if I can shut the stop share. There we go. Okay, now we're back. Let's see. I just see a message from Jeremy Wyant about a PowerPoint with his build. So if somebody wants to go show off a build, I will pull that up and we will get back to you on this. Is there anybody that would like to share their build? All right. Tell you what, Greg, why don't you, since you've got a couple, since you've got some pics ready to go, could you go ahead and take that over while I download this?
Yeah, Ed, can you give me share?
Let's see. Hold on one second.
Holding on.
As long as your thing stops moving on the participant pad, I should be able to hit you. Go for it.
All right. Hopefully you can see this little bar. This was the first timers bar that Clark has been showing us how to build from Downtown Deco. And I had done a couple Downtown Deco kits long ago in the 90s, along with another Hydrocal kit. So I was looking forward to this to get back into it. And Clark's tips really helped because I had forgotten a lot of what I had done back then. Now, this particular one I built for a friend's layout. He models the B&O Railroad that goes into Georgetown in the 1940s and 50s. And I asked him, well, what name do you want on the bar? And he said, well, I'm doing research to see what bars were down there at the time. Well, his research has been going on for a while now. So as of right now, the bar doesn't have any name on it. Once he comes up with a name for me, I will make a sign for it, and then it will go to his layout. This is just a picture of it on mine. But I wanted to say that Clark's tips were spot on. Everything that he mentioned worked, and all of the stuff that he talked about really helped. And that's the end of mine.
Quick question. Do you know if anyone has actually done an interior on one of these?
I don't know of one. The walls are a little thicker than most kits. So you could do an interior, but it would not quite look faithful.
Hi guys, I'm not so sure if on these real small kits you'd want to put an interior just because they're so limited, but on some of the bigger kits you could certainly put an interior in and it would show off in the model. So that's certainly one way of doing it. So yeah, I think that Greg, thank you very much for the nice comments too, but Don did a great job on his model, and I really liked his signs. And on yours, I really like the extra little details you added, especially the grating to the front door. I thought that was just excellent. So I try more or less to stick to the kit just because newer people who would build along, that's what they're going to do. So I tend to not to add too much other than maybe a few things, but your extra little details were great. So very well done. And I hope others have done the kit. Now, I did get a message. One of the participants sent me a message, and he said he just got his kit. And to remind people who maybe go, oh, I'd like to try that, it's still available. The clinic part is still in the YouTube channels, and you can still order the kit from Downtown Deco. So if you go to the first night, and I believe, I forget what night it actually was, for the introduction, you'll see where to order the kit and how to order the kit, and then you can just follow along with the instructions that we did almost every other week. So we can go from there. So if you're a little new to new tracks, you can still join in on all of our builds, I believe, through YouTube.
Cool. All right, thanks, Clark. And I went back and checked. It is Don Phillips that those two photos came from. So I apologize for bungling up his name. And I do have Jeremy's presentation that I'll put up here in a second.
You know, Don sent an awfully nice email with those two photos. And for people that don't know, he lives in British Columbia. And both of those kits are first time for him. He never built a wooden structure. He never built a kit out of that material that Downtown Deco manufactures. And those were his first efforts at kit building. So Don, thank you so much for trying. It makes what Clark is doing and Greg and the others, it makes it all worthwhile when you take the time to tell us that you enjoy it and show us what you've been able to accomplish. Thank you so much for the email, and thank you so much for your photos.
Yes, those you would not think that was a first-time modeler doing those. Anyway, up on the screen here, we have the first timer bar from Jeremy Wyant. Did you do this in O scale, I'm assuming, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's O scale.
Okay, cool. And let's
So I followed Clark's instruction and tried to cram all the last steps into a few hours this afternoon. So bear that in mind. You can go to the next slide.
All right.
So I tried to put that big decal across the whole side here, the one with the long rectangle with the circle in the middle. I'm sure Clark knows what I'm talking about. But man, I put that white, and I was doing tissue paper, and I put that white glue on there, and what a mess trying to line that up. And I got glue all over the side of the building. It was a total mess. And so I decided that I gave up on that, but I had also printed out on tissue the PAP sign. And then I made a couple metal signs. I didn't have the right bond paper, so I just glued together a couple sheets of paper, and I, got a couple off, Google search for a couple things, including the PAPS thing. So the PAPS painted on sign on the wall there, I followed the instructions and stuff, but it's still like it's off by, obviously the whole bottom got trashed. That was accidental. That wasn't on purpose. It all tore off because I rubbed that rubber thing too much. So maybe I'm going to replace that painted on sign with a metal sign, but the quality of that metal sign looks pretty dubious as well.
I think it looks great the way it is.
No, I think your weathering on those are great, Jeremy. I wouldn't touch them now. You the PAPS one where it maybe didn't sink into the brick as much, and you said that was on tissue.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to point out is you notice that this free beer tomorrow sign on the right,
yeah,
that's kind of really poorly placed on that building. Why would anybody do that? Well, I had a whole mess of glue that seeped out between the thing, and then it wouldn't age properly, so I put the sign over the glue. hey, you know,
Well,
you got to do what you got to do.
Those are
that's,
what you call happy mistakes.
that's,
I've tried a trick doing that tissue paper sign where I put the sign on the wall dry and then use some glue diluted at least 50.
That's a good idea. I might try that. Was that O scale or?
Yeah, I did it in O scale, and that way the tissue is actually strong enough that with a brush you can work it into the seams and it doesn't fall apart. And that way you've got diluted glue and you can just keep track of it. You ever tried that, Clark?
I have, I won't say I specifically done it that way, but it turned out that way. So yeah, the tissue is pretty strong.
It is. It's amazing. You can actually, it almost becomes a little bit like, I don't know, paper mache anyway. I did it on stone, not on bricks, but I did it on stone, and you
Yeah.
could actually work the tissue into the contours of the stone.
Yeah.
And then because it's so dilute, you can just use a piece of paper towel and wipe the excess off as you go around, and the glue dries pretty clear anyway. Then you can.
Jeremy, I thought you did a great job in the weathering the two metal signs. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was just like literally this morning. I was like, I had the stuff printed out, then I glued together 2 sheets, and then I just took some burnt umber, the miracle color, and just painted the wash of that, and that's what you get.
Yeah. No, I think they look great. I
like the figure. I like Clark's photogenic figure that you've got there.
You get that from Scenic Express.
Jeremy, that's a nice spot.
So go to the next slide there, Chris. There's another couple. You can see more mistakes here. So on the upper left there on that sign, it just stuck and I couldn't get it straight. So I just decided to smear it, and there's some kind of leak from the roof or something going down. So, and we were talking about interiors. I haven't attached this door. It's just stuck in there. I think I might, because it's O scale, I might try to do an interior. I think it'd be really cool to have the lights and being able to look all the way down. I'm going to put the bar at the end because obviously it's not wide enough for a bar, and well, maybe it is, and people on both sides. So we get a bar at the end and put a wood stove or something in there. I don't know.
yeah.
There's Altec 6 on YouTube says they're working on the first timer now, but they're a few weeks behind. Having it on YouTube is very helpful.
Well, that's great. And whenever you get it finished, please let Chris know, and he'll schedule you for the next My Bill that we have.
And
Hey, so while we got this picture up there, Clark, you can see on the upper right there, that sign is starting, you know, that's supposed to be painted on sign is peeling off. So I don't know whether to try, maybe if I put some of that diluted glue on it, it'll stick to the.
Just take your brush and kind of go underneath that edge with a little diluted glue, and then push it into place.
Well, okay. There's one more slide here to show you the other side. I did successfully.
You can actually do it right on the surface, and it'll go through the tissue paper and stick to the bricks.
I think that's a paper sign though.
Oh, is it? I thought it was tissue.
Oh no, that was tissue as well.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Then you don't. Yeah, you can do like Al said. Yeah.
Just go on the surface.
Yeah.
So I really wanted a Genesee beer sign. I don't know if it's authentic to 1954, but I tried.
Hey, that looks great. And you know what? Now see, that first timer bar sign is really well done.
But it was my second try, and at least it didn't have that circular part that got all gummed up, so I could pretty easily lay it down.
Yeah, but I think that looks great. I think see how the brick is coming through by the F at the first timer. See how the brick is coming through. I think that's well done.
Yeah, I found that I was afraid to overwork it because maybe it is strong, but man, it started to tear off. Maybe it's timing.
If you push it straight into the building, it won't tear. But if you start stretching it, it may tear.
Yeah.
Put Put a little bit of photo flow or tiny little bit of dish soap to get a wetting
Yeah, that
agent.
might work too, right, Al?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use photo flow. I bought a jar about 100 years ago and I still got 3/4 off it because you only need a drop.
Yeah.
Photo flow works great as a wetting agent for anything you're doing, but it helps doing this too. I've done several of these on stone buildings and it works quite well.
Yeah, so I think this kit was great. I'll be buying some more downtown deco buildings just because I like working with the hydrocal. Hey,
It
one other question. To fix that seam, I went and bought some of that hydrocal in those 2-quart containers.
Oh,
That's lightweight. But
yes.
that didn't work right.
No,
So
you know why?
it looks like it's got baking soda in it.
Actually, what it's got beads of styrofoam,
Ah, okay.
and it won't suck into those as well. You really need, and unfortunately, most places they want to sell you a 50-pound bag of hydrocal.
So can you mail me like 2 tablespoons of hydrocal for the next kit?
The problem would be once you get it there, either the FBI or the RCMP would be there going, "Is this a drug?" But if you can find a friend or something maybe that's doing scenery and they bought a big bag of hydrocal, that's the best stuff to use though.
Actually, spackling compound will work good too.
But it doesn't. That you have to push into the thing with the hydrocal. It will just absorb it in, and it.
Right.
So, but yeah. Now the other thing you can do to hide that seam is put your like a downspout on for your, for your rain downspout.
After seeing Greg's there, I saw yours, but I didn't have any styrene, but it looks like Greg used that wire that came with
Or
the
you
kit,
can
so
use wire, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So, but I think you've done a great job for somebody who's never tried one
Yeah, Jeremy, I think the colors you got in that thing is just fantastic.
And the colors are great.
Yeah, both the rocks down below and the brickwork itself. That's just gorgeous. And I like your signs. I know you see all the flaws in them, and I see all the flaws in everything I build. But I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I don't see much of an issue really with the signs, other than, like you say, that one on the front is maybe coming up a bit, but you can glue that down, and I think they look great.
Thanks.
But
Okay,
hey,
guys.
in real life, though, signs aren't perfect. They fade out and wear off, and
Yeah.
Okay. Does somebody else have a model they'd like to show?
Just if anybody jumps in, if you email the guys at the show, if you're building along now and it's kind of after and you have a question, you can certainly again contact me with one of the guys, and they'll send with Jim, and they'll send me an email, and I'll send back an email to you answering whatever question you have.
Would you like to put your email in the chat?
No.
Well, then they can't email you.
Just send it to me. I'll get it to him. No problem.
That's what I mean.
Ed, you want to put my email in the chat so that everybody can have mine?
Sure. Thank
you. All right, Chris, thank you so very much for this evening. I appreciate it and look forward to May the 29th. And Chris, I really do appreciate you putting together the list of all of the build-alongs, the dates and that kind of thing. That's going to be very helpful. And if you can get that to Ed, I will start using that instead of talking it through each week or each show. I'll just use your slides. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, it sounds good, because I noticed the last time you went over it twice, and it's like you kept skipping around. I figured if we put it in one format, it'd be good to just have it there and show it.
Absolutely. I guess, yeah, I got you. What I'm trying to do is separate and you had a problem doing it tonight the same as I have, because you slip into my build instead of build along. And we, and I know that I'm doing the same thing. So that's another reason why I think the slides are going to be so helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
So now I'd like to move on to Paul Thompson for his quick tips of the evening. Paul, thank you.
Hi, Jim. Okay, let me just start sharing here. And tonight I'm going to do something that may be a little controversial, but it may get you out of a jam. Who knows? Okay, everybody see that?
Yep.
Good. Okay, that is a roll of paper towel. And you're probably asking, why is he showing a roll of paper towel? Well, I'm showing it in conjunction with a piece of wood. And the next thing I'm going to show is a piece of track. And you're all wondering, okay, what, has he lost his mind? No, I haven't. What happens when you get to a show and you've got a 4-foot module and you don't have anything to clean it with? You forgot your bright boy, you forgot just about everything. But you do have leveling sticks for your modules, and 9 chances out of 10 you can get a piece of paper towel. So what I propose is wrapping the paper towel thusly on the stick and running along your track. And if you've got a 4-foot module, this does not really take that much time and you don't have to put down that much pressure. What happens is you get the first application is dirty, and sooner or later it starts cleaning up. And I know this works because, frankly, I've been in that situation. And on nickel silver track, it works fine. And you don't actually scuff up your track the way sandpaper or some other abrasives would do. It just uses friction and force and gets rid of the dirt. Now, I would caution you, don't use your fingers, especially around switches. And when you're around the points of a switch, run away from the sharp end so that you're not catching and snagging the points of your switch and messing up your switch. Other than that, that's my tip for the night, guys. And I know it's a little controversial maybe, but it might get you out of a jam. Who knows? Thank you.
Absolutely, it will. In fact, I really appreciate you doing this tonight, Paul, because it reminds me that I've got to take another roll of the paper towels out to the shop. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to go to Martin Breckville, MMR, for scratch building project. Martin, thank you.
Okay, let's see if I can get what happens. Hey, I'm always amazed it worked. Oh, well, that's not what I wanted it to do. There we go. Okay, well, that's a waste of a slide anyhow. So we'll just go into the first slide, other than a title. About roughly a year ago, I sat down and decided I was going to build a bunch of cars. So first thing I did, I built a bunch of flat car frames, or basically what I call blanks, because they're a blank slate, a blank canvas, whatever you want to call it. Once you have these parts, you can build anything you want on top of it. Just grab one off the stack and go forward. So I have what, 8 of them here? I think I have 2 left. I've built about 6 other cars not using those because I wanted longer, or I had some cars that had steps in them and I didn't want to cut these frames up anymore. And I just wanted to use these as they were. So they're pretty much basic. You have some under frame. You run the train line in as you build these, because putting it in later is really, really painful. Bending brass around an S curve takes more talent than I have when it's 33 thousandths brass. It just does not want to go around an S curve very nicely and cleanly. You can do it, but the easier way to do it is just to take your scalpel or your X-Acto knife and cut 2 holes in it and drop it in and patch it. It's a lot faster, a lot less painful, and while it will minimize the colorful language, it's much more satisfying to get it done and move on, as opposed to fighting with it.
Now, quick question, is that colorful language, is that the weathering portion of it or the painting portion?
No, that's the when you're practicing your Klingon or other languages that nobody else speaks. And you don't want to upset the neighbors, the wife, or small children that might be outside playing. So I wanted to build a pair of water tank cars. And I've built tank cars, water tank cars of all sorts before. What's underneath this wood is electrical conduit from a Home Depot. You go down the electrical aisle, you can get this gray tubing. It's just right for an O-scale tank car. You got to buy, I think, 12 feet of it. So you're going to make a lot of tank cars, but you're not going to run out anytime soon. And it's incredibly economical and it cuts nice and smoothly. You run it right through the bandsaw. You can cut it with a hacksaw and just sand it straight if you want. I don't remember what these are. I think they're 3x12. So it's a wooden tank car. It's one board at a time. This is I forgot what size hole this is. Probably 3/8 or a 1/2 inch hole. That's just brass tubing. You just drill a hole through the conduit first. Don't try to drill through the wood. It won't work. It'll rip this apart unless you have an incredibly good Forstner bit. And I don't have one that good. But this is just brass tubing, some square stock, soldered together, some flat stock on top, solder it all together, drop it down in a hole. This stops it at the height, keeps it where you want it. You can cut this off to whatever height you want, and you can adjust your dome here, your hatch, and then just build the wood around it. You can patch this all later with some caulk or some goo and paint it black and call it tar for sealing it. The ends, these are just going to hold it in place. You can see it's rubber band in place. Let's see, a picture of the end. Well, don't have an end shot. The ends of this are just scribe siding. I try to get it in alignment with the opposite end. I usually fail. It's usually skewed a little bit. I figure that doesn't really matter too much. You can only look at one end at a time. If you try to line it up in your head, it doesn't work very well. Underbody, well, it hasn't changed too much, but it's got a couple of bolsters. They're my castings, your needle beams, and I've started ever so much fun wrapping of silk thread and barrel hoops. These are Grant line parts, and you can actually glue this silk thread to the underside into the little groove, wrap it around, glue it to the top, trim it off, and then the only thing that holds this in place then is the Grant line casting. So they're staggered in a pattern, offset them. It's a lot of fun. It only takes you a few hours of your life. Actually, it takes a few evenings of your life because that glue takes forever to set all these individual pieces. It's kind of maddening, but it's very satisfying once completed. We'll put a full underbody in, or as close to a full underbody as I'm going to put into it. Silk thread all through all 4 times. K-brake casting. I'm not sure which one. I think that's looks like a Wiseman Model Services one. Some precision scale lever hangers. I think those are actually, I think, Grant line levers. The clevises I make out of chopping up Grant line turnbuckles. A little bit of chain going into the stirrup over here on the brake. Some brass wire holding it all together. Just flip this over, I hope. Yes. So you flip it over, you can see what keeps the barrel from rolling off or sliding off the ends. We have a nice cradle, uprights at each end, brass wire going into the turnbuckle castings. These are actually through the end blocks or into the end blocks and match up. Well, actually, the holes are drilled through, so they do match up with the, these are Tichy castings on the ends. I really like the Tichy castings because that's a nice rust brown color. It beats gray or black. So, you know, they look good with just a little bit of paint on them, or no paint at all if you forget about them. Different angle from the same thing. And you can see how everything goes together. There's a brake wheel over here somewhere on the end with this little platform with a ratchet and pull casting. You just drill that out. I think that's a brass one, so it's precision scale. You just drill it out so your brake shaft goes through it. And then just drop everything into place. And I literally do mean drop everything into place. I never really attached these tanks to the car. What holds them in place is friction and gravity. They are removable. A little bit of laser cut ladder stock on the ends. You can see the brake wheels better here. Some Scale City Design stirrup steps. They make really nice white metal parts. They bought out Keel Line a number of years ago and are a really great resource for detail parts. Got a handle now on the top of the hatch here. There's a little hinge, these little orange hinges. I don't have no idea where I got them from, but they just happen to fit that little space perfectly. Just keep everything and throw it into a parts bin. You'll probably need it someday. And well, we've got an air hose on the back end here, but we got to drain the tank somehow. So a valve casting, I think that came from Wiseman again, and it was partially cored out. So I drilled it out, added some tubing. This is actually open tubing that actually goes into the end of the barrel, or the tank in this case. No, it doesn't operate. I'm not going to carry actual water around. And splash some paint on everything. And since the tank is actually removable, you can paint it a different color very conveniently. Just yank it out of there. Literally, you have to yank it out of there. It's really pretty tight. These nut bolt and washer castings on the inside actually pinch it into place pretty tightly. I had a suggestion from a friend, add a walkway, so add some, I think those are 3x4s or 4x4s underneath, and just some HO 3x12 on top. I got a bag of HO 3x12. I use it for all kinds of things, even in O scale. Makes great roof wall. So this is, I don't know what color green that is. I don't know what color red this is, but green and red, it's very Christmassy. It was around Christmas when I was painting this, now I think about it. A little touch up with some black paint here and there, some roof brown on the walk. See my brass wire got a little bend in it here. Probably had to force that into place. It's probably under some tension. And since I built two of them, this is the other one. They're kind of hard to tell apart, but they are slightly different. And I usually can or can't tell them apart depending on what time of day it is and how much sleep I've had. So there's the other one. Put a little red paint on top of the handle just so you can see it a little better. You know, little details like that. And you can see I added that little tar around the tank to seal that all off. So these little things add up real quick. That's it. We're done with those two cars. And questions are, go ahead and get me into trouble with questions.
Yeah, so just a question, did you ever think about maybe starting with a sealed container and filling it half full with a liquid? So now the car would actually have movement of, I mean, it's just, I just looking at that, I think that would be so cool if you built it around where it actually, so as it was on a layout, it would actually have the simulated motion of some level of liquid. You could do it and it would weight the car.
Oh, it would
be a purpose.
I neglected to mention, those cars are weighted. There's a hunk of 3 millimeter sheet lead inside the tank. But having a liquid that actually moves, so the car comes to a stop, but it doesn't come to a stop.
Yeah, it could actually bounce a little bit.
Yeah, it could have a little extra momentum on the added special effect momentum.
For the next one, that'll be an added feature.
Well, if I could seal the car, if I could really seal it.
You build around it. You basically you
Yeah.
put the brass skills to build a brass tank.
Yeah.
Get them half full of liquid, seal it completely, and then just use that as the form to build the wood around.
Yeah. I have built some brass tanks. I've usually avoided leaving anything in them, fearing that I would heat them up with a torch later and it would blow up on me. but
Martin, you're only one step away from having to make that valve working, you know.
yeah, I know. I'd have to go. I think I've seen, actually, it's probably doable. If you can make brakes work in O scale, you can probably make that valve work. And I've seen working brakes. Who is it? Bernie Kopensky has working brakes on some of his Civil War cars. You turn the brake wheel, and the brakes actually work on one end of the car. And those cars only had brakes on one truck, so it's actually a fascinating special effect. And I have a can't remember the name of the kit, but it has a brake wheel that actually does actuate the chain at the bottom and hook it into the system. Doesn't set the brakes, but it does have some working aspects. Somebody spends a lot of time on that car. Oh, anything else?
Now, what kind of liquid are you going to put in there? Mercury?
No. No. I've got enough environmental disaster zones that people can lay at my feet. I'm not going to add another one. I have enough lead to cause enough trouble already in my shop. I don't know. We'll think of something.
Just a light brass tank. I mean, if you think about it, if you had a brass tube,
Yeah.
the right diameter, cut it off, solder two ends on it, and put a little opening in one and another little hole. Put the liquid in, then seal that. Just build around it, and you probably can get by with water. If you have filled it with water, I bet the weight would be heavy.
Yeah.
But then that would give the slosh, because the idea is the slosh is what makes it interesting.
Exactly. I know. I'm following you right along with it. I think that would be a lot.
I mean, that would, to me, to build a car like that would make it worth the work to build around it.
It'd be fun to try. Well, I've got some brass tank car ends. I've got some brass pipe actually, but they match.
The problem with this is there's no way when you get done you can't make a video.
Oh, digging me into a deeper hole as we go.
No, it's actually not that much more work than what you did if you stop and think about it.
Oh no, no.
A few percent.
Well, we need the sound effects also, the water sloshing in it too.
Now the thing is, are you also going to design it so it when you're going loading and unloading? So I mean, the characteristics of it change.
Oh yeah. Well, probably getting into a realm of operations that's way beyond my capacity or desire to explore.
Martin, I think we're heading down a rabbit hole here.
I think we're off into the weeds, into the neighbor's yard now.
Yeah, I think so too. So, Martin, thank you so much for doing this. It's a great looking car, and once again, you have brought scratch building into reality.
Yeah,
and demonstrated that it's really just taking bits and pieces and some common sense and some creativity and building a model. It's not rocket science, and I really do appreciate you bringing this down to a level where people can understand it and what's involved.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about that building that tank car, you can go back and build that classic dollar car article from the late 50s for the water tank car. I can't remember the name of the company, but I've built 3 or 4 of them. But the decals for that are available, so I may come back to that someday. We build yet another wooden tank car.
Fantastic! I look forward to it. Thanks again, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
So now I'd like to turn to our featured modeler, Paul Wilson. I met Paul months ago now. I can't remember how long ago. He and a friend of his have been very helpful in doing the videos for the train shows and giving me counsel and advice on how these shows should be put together and so forth. And I really can't thank them both enough for that. Paul is going to talk to us again about the NMRA's LCC program. I know that we had John come on, and John is a board member of the NMRA, and has been heavily involved in the LCC program. Paul is a member of the NMRA and very active, but I think his perspective on the LCC may be of interest to you. And I really do appreciate him being able to join us tonight and talk about the LCC. Because again, it's something that I think may be the future for a lot of us in model railroading. But I'll be honest with you, I'm still having a lot of trouble understanding how I would use the concept right now on my modeling. So Paul, thank you so very much for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it and look forward to this.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to ask, we're going to see here, I guess I'm spotlighted. I'm going to try and share my screen. I'm up in Rhinelander, well, actually 3 Lakes, and I'm going to try and share it with the PowerPoint being on multiple screens. So I'm going to hit the share screen, and then I'm going to open up my PowerPoint, and hopefully we'll see, well, that isn't telling us a lot. There we go. Okay, I'll get you guys out of the picture and we're ready to go. And so the question is, what is it? Well, before I get into that,
Excuse me. Paul,
well, yeah, go ahead.
stop for a moment. You're actually sharing, you're running 2 screens and you're running PowerPoint and presenter view. And you are sharing with us the presenter view screen, not the other screen. So stop sharing.
Okay,
Yeah, you have to
give me a
stop
hand
sharing.
here.
You have to stop sharing, or Ed can stop you.
Okay, I'll have to have you do
I'll
something for me.
I'll walk you through it. I'll walk you through it.
There
Yeah,
we
Paul.
go.
Phil will walk you through it.
Okay, so go ahead and hit the share.
Now I'll hit share screen.
Now, if you look on the screen, you see the screen where, which screen did you hit before?
Well, it isn't there anymore because I took it down. Let me bring it up. It's not on there. It's on the screen next to me.
Right. So what you want to do is go ahead and put your PowerPoint into share and share the screen where put it into show. Share the screen where it's full screen. Don't share the screen where the PowerPoint slides are and where we are.
Okay.
Share the other screen.
Do
Yeah,
you have that now?
No, we have nothing now. You actually have to
Oh.
start the program. Start the
Okay.
slideshow.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna do a little bit of different. I'm gonna go down to one screen here and close this out. Here I am now. And if I share screen and then open,
Paul,
I'm listening.
Turn your video off. Stop your camera because it says you have low network bandwidth, and that may be. Then now try sharing.
Let's go ahead and use this screen and we'll open up the PowerPoint. And how is that? Now, do you have what is it?
No.
No.
That's interesting. I haven't had that happen before. I'm going to end the show. I'm going to go ahead and close that. From this position, I have a PowerPoint open, and I have the ability of hitting share screen. I'm willing to accept any suggestions you might have.
Please, your network bandwidth is low.
Okay,
Wait,
yes.
can you let me finish, please? When your network bandwidth is low, it gives preference to your video and won't let you share because it wants to let your video go through. Turn your camera off and try sharing.
Just a second here. I've got all kinds of extra information. Zoom is now talking to me as well. I don't want to leave the meeting on you.
No. Do you want to go over to your lower left where it says stop video?
So far, right now, all I've got is a picture of myself in a very small corner.
Try sharing again. Try sharing again. The video bandwidth message went away on my screen. You may be able to share now. Try again.
Okay, what should I have up on the screen when I do the share?
So when you open, so have you put the slideshow into? Have you put PowerPoint into slideshow?
Just a second. Let me get it to that point. It is there. It is in slideshow, but that's all I see on my screen. I can't see the share or anything else.
Okay, so what's on your other screen?
Nothing. I unplugged it.
Oh, okay.
That got me down to one screen.
Okay, so go back. Okay, go back now. Just go out of the show mode. Go back to just your stop show.
Okay.
Go ahead and
now
share screen.
Okay.
And just share the screen. Share your desktop. It's the upper left screen.
Okay. Okay. And now open up the show.
Yeah, it's not show. There it is. Yep.
Okay.
You're good
so
to go.
Now
you're good to go.
I'm going to reduce you guys down to nothing and put you up in the corner, and then we'll take off here. So the question, of course, is what is LCC? And what I want to talk about tonight is kind of the concept of it. We'll come to a point where I say coffee break. That's where we'll stop tonight, because after that it gets very, very technical and is too much for just about anybody. But first I have to put this up. LCC is owned, the concept or the name LCC and the logo as we see it here are owned by the NMRA. And when I've given this presentation, the first time I gave it, it was brought to my attention that I was violating the NMRA rules. I made some inquiries and I was given permission to use the NMRA LCC logo by the General Counsel and received permission to do that. So you'll see a couple of logos in here. One will be the LCC logo because that's what we're talking about. And the other one will be from the Arizona club that I've worked with in installing the LCC. So that gets the legal out of the way. And then we want to talk about the fact that the LCC was an NMRA proposed solution about a little more than a decade ago for the creation of this license-free method to interface to your layout. The intent was like DCC, that the manufacturers would get on board and start producing products that were interchangeable, much like the DCC decoders and so forth are today, where no matter what system you had running your trains, you'd have LCC running your accessories. And so the proposal stated that it should be a license-free commercial standard to use in the communications. They use the CAN bus. It should be robust and viable for the next generation. They wanted it to be new and exciting, and it certainly has been. It should be a peer-to-peer network. We'll delve into that a little later, but not require a central control station. And any two devices from any manufacturer should be able to talk to each other. So that brings us back to the question about what is it? And really what it is is the superhighway for accessories. And I want to make sure you understand that we're talking about accessories and their control on the model railroad layout. Here in the corner, you see a number of nodes and daughter boards, which we'll talk about later on the Arizona Capitol Club layout. But LCC provides a common language for the accessories on a layout to talk to each other. LCC is designed to deal with layout functions like turnout motors or block detection, signals, railroad crossings, grade crossings, the lights in buildings, ambient light, and even hooking up your Arduino projects and so forth to your layout. One of the things we talk about building lights, a little concept we have going down there in Arizona is that every every few hours it becomes nighttime and then daytime again. And about every fourth night, midnight or so, the bathroom light comes on in one of the buildings. And that's just all sending functions from the LCC. Now, if you'll bear with me on this slide here, we just kind of talk about the idea that DCC operates the trains. And so we all probably here know about DCC and having power packs and sending the data out to the decoders. And each decoder in a locomotive is independent. Of course, you might have them in a consist or so forth. And LCC operates things that are on the layout, but not on the track. There's no connection to the track. You might pass a wire going to the track through a transformer that detects current. There's two-way communications through the CAN bus, and all of the nodes on the LCC receive all the data that's transmitted or generated by any other node. Now, again, on the track, it's DCC. Beside the track, it's LCC. The crossovers that exist right now between on and beside the track, you see LocoNet and all of these things that I've mentioned. There's more, but they're all proprietary systems, and for the most part, they don't interact with each other. If you have, if you're using one of these, you might be able to get along perfectly fine with your DCC and your accessories, but you can't intermix them between the different systems. And that's where the proprietary side comes, we want it to come out. Now with DCC again, as I say, I'm trying to emphasize the difference here, and that's that DCC provides digital information with the power, or through the power, actually. I don't want to get into the details of it all, but through the rails. The command station, no matter which system you're using, with each throttle or other input device via proprietary networks like your telephone connections through JMRI and so forth, can send information. The command station sends signals out to the engines basically, but also to other decoders that could be receiving signals from the command station. It wasn't exactly designed to have feedback. I know that we are getting feedback through some systems, but it's all running on the same network. And actually, DCC network speeds are pretty slow. Sound equipment uses more data, of course. The more we put on there, stationary decoders and so forth, slows things down. I have friends that have been complaining about the fact that they have a lot of things connected and they have bidirectional data and all, but when they go to, when there's 5 or 6 or more trains running on the layout and someone's trying to call for a crossing, the whistle blows after the train passes the crossing. That's just the slowing down of the data because of everything that's going on the DCC network. Now, LCC doesn't just have to run with DCC. It can be used with AC, DC, DCC, DCS, all these things you see, including battery power or dead track. Keith suggested with steam locomotives as well, although that might mess up the basement. He gets his steam locomotives outside, and it would work with that. So now I'm going over to some basic building blocks here of the LCC. Again, saying this is a side next to the track, not part of running the trains at all. And the building blocks include an interface, and this interface is for configuring. I'll emphasize that more again later, but it interfaces to a computer. LCC connects up with your JMRI for configuring these different components. The brains of the system are the nodes or the towers and signal cards, and they provide communications with each other and are daisy chained together with a Cat5 cable. Standard Cat5 cable, standard RJ45. I was talking with Keith again last night and said an SD45, and he said I'd have to have an awfully big plug for that. So anyway, the brains then go to the function cards, which are considered daughter boards. They attach to the tower or the signal cards in this case and provide for connections. Most of them are connected with they can be plugged directly in, or they use a 10-wire flat cable. Here is a basic, simple system, about as simple as you can get. You have a power point. Obviously, you have to have some power going in, and that goes to a wall wart off here through this plug. And then there are terminators. We have very high-speed data running, and so we have to be careful with having terminators on the CAN bus. Now, this CAN bus, if you're not familiar with it, is used in most of your cars these days, and also in commercial airplanes and private airplanes. One of our members in our Three Lakes Club just had his 172 converted over to a glass panel, and it has all CAN bus facilities. Back here in the connections, we run a connection over with the power to a signal LCC node, which is connected to this BOD4 control point, and then to have a buffer to be able to communicate with a computer. Again, we've said we don't need a computer to operate, but we do need it to configure. I'll put one little note on that. If you're running JMRI and you have JMRI on your layout, you've got it set up so that you've got your whole panel, control panel and so forth for JMRI on there. LCC can talk to JMRI as if the JMRI is just another node, and you can have your JMRI panel acknowledge what's going on the layout from the LCC information. You can also send information back out to the LCC, but a computer is not required once it's configured. Moving on, here's our two brains cards that I've talked about. The tower is a general card that has 16 lines hooked up. You have two 10-pin connectors. There's power and ground and 16 data lines that can be either input or output, or in certain configurations, they flip back and forth. They can toggle,
and be both input and output, depending again on your configuration. So think of that as a general IO card. The signal card has the convenience of having a 8-pin, 8 outputs on a 10-pin wire connection here. And then all these little green things, you'll see there's 4 of them. We talk about it talking to a daughter board, which I'll show you in a moment, through the 10-pin connector. And then these little screws in the green connectors actually go to your signal masts. And while I say 4 signal masts, if you get tricky, because there's room for red, yellow, green, and lunar, you can take the lunar off of 3 of the signal masts and program that as a 5th signal mast in red, green, and yellow if you want. The daughter boards, typical daughter boards, some examples of them that plug into either of the cards that we looked at as the brains would be block detectors. And they basically are your setup for a block detector. Different DCC systems have their own block detectors. These use these little transformers here. The transformers have two wires on them that attach and go back to the block detector board. And you only have to run one of your wires going to the particular block that you want to detect through this. It's not a number of loops. Single wire can go through there. If you're running number 12 wire to go out to a distance, we've even proven down in the Capitol building in Arizona that you can put these transformers, these little green, red transformers here, right near your control station and run your wires out, and you don't have to have them right up close to the block that they're detecting, and they detect perfectly. The next one that I have an example of here is the stall motor switch machine. Has 8 outputs for your stall motors, like a tortoise machine. The power for that you supply elsewhere. You supply power and put it in to this card, and you can actually control the rate at which they move, because you control and regulate the speed by regulating the output voltage through the card. And there's also your relay or solenoid controlled switch daughter boards as well. And then we have the BOD, I don't know why I want to do BD all the time, at BOD4 control point. And it has occupancy detectors and more. And I'm going to go ahead. One of the things I emphasize here is this little power lock function. And I think we'll see more of that in the next slide. With this, you can put 4 block detectors into this board. You put the track power that you're running for these blocks into this board. You can control 2 turnouts, and you have 4 additional sense lines that come in as well, that you can act as inputs along with their ground. You're going to be pulling these to ground to indicate that they're active. It also has the way of getting the connection to your brains unit. Usually a signal card can either be a straight plug-in. Unfortunately, people tend to knock those and break them off. So a short cable that you press fit some connectors on with the 10 pins makes it fairly easy. Now, one might ask, why do you have this track power here associated with these detection blocks? Well, if somebody in one of the detection blocks generates a short, backs through a switch or something, all of a sudden there's no current going through the track to the detection block, so it's not detecting anything. And if your signal systems and all are set up to operate off of the fact that there's current passing through, they'll say, oh, there's nothing in that block, so I'm going to make that signal go unoccupied and drop the signal green and the preceding one yellow and so forth. This board will actually detect that the short occurred and lock the signals so that the tracks that are being detected as having a train or something like a caboose or a lighted car in them will still be occupied, even though the breakers have shut off the power to that circuit until you get the short taken care of and you reset. So this is a very convenient board. I use it on my test circuits and use it around the layout in a number of locations. The SMD8 board, another input board, input-output board, can be used in this case set up for turnouts. And again, you can put in the power for the turnouts. You can control the speed. This is for a stall motor, SM. And then you have the outputs to the stall motor switch machines, which come off the these 10-pin plugs. The data for it coming in from a tower, usually a tower card in the case of the controls for the tortoise switch machines, or your switch machines if you're using a different board with the solenoids, it will control those. Now, this is a simple, if you will, view of a passing siding, and I'm going to break it down to one end of it with two cards. Right here, you can see that we have a PowerPoint and we have a computer hooked up to it to do programming, and the communications lines just continue on between nodes. So let's go to a close-up here. And this now is just one end of a passing siding. And we're using two boards, a Brains signal LCC card that's connected to the CAN bus. And we have one 10-pin wire connection going to a BOD4 control point. And if you follow all these wires, you'll see that we're detecting the current flow at the track coming into the turnout, in the turnout, and in each of the possible tracks that the turnout is pointing to. We can detect, using those sense terminals, we can detect whether the points have actually thrown or not, as well as providing power to the stall motor switch machine. This is all happening from the control point here on the BOD4. Turnout power is supplied by your turnout power supply. And if you look real close, you'll see we're sensing whether the points have thrown. You can do that. You design your own circuit for that. And I'm getting an indication that my internet isn't real stable. I hope that clears up. You have to realize I'm out on a peninsula up here.
didn't really know I was going to be here on this Wednesday. We changed a few dates there, Jim, and I ended up here instead of being down in Glen Ellen. But again, to
Hey,
the
Paul?
sensing point, we're sensing.
Hey, Paul. Uh-oh. I think we lost Paul. I was gonna,
Paul had sent me an email saying that he was afraid that he was going to have trouble up there tonight. So
That's the challenge of LCC and distance like that.
yeah, I was gonna suggest that he turn off his video because he still had it on, but it looks like I wasn't able to tell him.
well, I hate to see that happen, but you know, it's no control over that. So I thank Paul so much, and I guess we'll have to move right along. Does anybody have any comments about LCC that they'd like to make? I mean, I know we didn't get through Paul's presentation, but does anybody have any comments?
Well, I know for myself, my layout's way too small for what LCC is for, and plus I'm also doing the 19th century. So I mean, I don't personally have any use for it, but from what I understand, there's not many manufacturers from there that do LTC.
Jim, I think it should be an interesting discussion. So hang on, let me see. I gotta change my microphone. Let me actually do it this way. Put my headset back on.
Because you're coming and going too, Phil.
My voice probably was because I wanted to change to my headset.
Yeah.
On my back. So here's the interesting thing. So if you look at LCC, there are two things LCC. So we have a thing called CMRI, which is instantiated in some products by a couple of companies, but a lot of people have used them and it's pretty easy to build. But it's a highly centralized system, and it's a highly centralized both in wiring and control, right? So wiring tends to be larger nodes. You can kind of distribute them, and the control is hierarchical up to JMRI, Panel Pro, and its solution set for creating a centralized control system. So that exists. It seems to me what LCC does two things differently. And the question is, I think, is the complexity and cost that I think we're going to find that LCC has worth that. And it really is a question of what you're modeling. So if you think about it, if you look at what LCC does, it allows you to distribute those nodes much more effectively around your layout, which means that you have a single wire running around your layout and shorter wires to the things being controlled, right? Whether it's a signaling system or any other component. So that's the first thing it does. The second thing it has is a thing called publish and subscribe, which is that peer-to-peer thing. And you have to understand computer science. And I'm not going to try to teach you computer science, but it's really, really simple. How easy is it to have a two-person phone call? How hard is it to have this kind of a Zoom meeting? A two-person phone call is like a centralized thing talking to one thing out here. This is a peer-to-peer thing. There are lots of things talking to each other, which means in peer-to-peer, if you're one thing and you have 100 peers, you have to listen to 100 peers. And it makes it very complicated to software program that and to listen to everything and do everything. So unless there's a lot of benefits in that architecture, it's a very costly and hard architecture to implement. And by the way, I'm not talking about anything other than pure computer science. And it's really obvious, right? If you have two people trying to do a project, it's a heck of a lot easier to do than having 100 people do the project. And so the second thing is this publish and subscribe peer-to-peer, which is a foundational tenet of LCC. What is its benefit? So I think it depends on what you model. So if you think about this, come back to, the comment from Ed, I model a small layout. Actually, for a small layout, it might be of benefit because you only buy a couple of nodes. There's a really simple computer program to say, if I push this button, this happens. And for a small layout, you probably could use it effectively. There are other options, don't get me wrong, but it is an option to do computer control, computerized control on a small layout to make it simple. The next thing is, if you talk about a large layout, I think it's going to split depending on the control of your layout. If you're running on your layout 100% a CTC level system from the 50s, they were highly centralized in their control, which means you're probably going to use JRMRI to control the layout to give you the replication of a CTC's panel with a dispatcher who flips a switch and pushes a button to lock it over into place. And that creation of that requires that everything have highly centralized control, except when you give local control for a specific turnout to a crew to do switching where they need to occupy the main line or something like that. So if you look at that kind of layout, the distributed, this peer-to-peer level control you get in LCC, the layout probably would never use it. All the control is up in JRMRI. So now the value of the system can purely be analyzed in, I think, two characteristics. One is, what is the cost of the equipment? And two, what is the complexity / cost of installation? And, we're doing a layout. I'm doing a layout right now, and I got really excited about LLC last Saturday. I think it was when we talked about it, and went back and looked at it. We've actually had originally purchased, the club had purchased way back in 8 years ago, a bunch of Chubb equipment, which is the CMRI stuff. And I listened, I thought, wow, this is really great. But what we realize is we're modeling the transition era in California, late 50s, early 60s, lots of F units. We're signaling to a 1960s Southern Pacific signaling plan that's in JRMRI. It's all going to be highly centralized control because that's the way the railroad ran back then. And we were building on a plan to use Cat5 and to run back to about 3 or 4 big centralized nodes where we'd have lots of IO points coming off. And what they do is go over these Cat5 panels. And if anybody's interested, I can do a clinic on what we're doing, because it makes, in the end, it makes wiring really, really easy. In fact, in the whole signaling system under the layout, there's never a solder joint. It's all plug and play. And it's not made with a plug and play system. It's just using Cat5 cables. So the question is the benefit of LCC, of the distribution around the layout, of enough benefit versus the cost? And I think that's a question you've got to look at. Now, I think for modern layouts, I don't know if you can do more with that publish and subscribe, but the real question is, do you use that capability, or do you use a control system like JRMI? And if you're using the publish and subscribe, the peer-to-peer, the next question I would ask is, do you have to develop it all yourself? Because if that, you have to do that, that's a pretty daunting task. So there's probably a lot of interesting questions here, around software for that and which you would choose. So it's really not clear to me that it's a clear-cut answer.
Phil?
All right, now that you can actually breathe, Phil, Paul is back.
Cool.
Well, I've come back, but I am running with very little power. We got a computer power up here on the peninsula. We got a warning. In fact, I think I sent Jim a note earlier this afternoon. My telephone binged at me and said that we were potentially going to lose signal, or a certain percentage of it. And while we have a high-speed system, something is going wrong with it. Now, I'm not going to try and continue on the PowerPoint, but I would point out that, yes.
Why don't we do this? Because of the problems that you've got, why don't I get with you and we'll set up another time? I think this is really important, and I really don't want to cut it short. But I'd rather have you have good connection and everything. And I'm sorry this worked out the way it did. Like you said, we did have to reschedule it. But why don't we just stop this tonight and we'll get back to it? How's that?
That's fine. I have from the folks, I have new modems and new gadgets, all to plug in, which they sent me a very, very nice note that said I could do it all myself. And the last line is, when you do all this and change all your wires, call us. And we avoided doing that to have at least what we had tonight. And my wife ran a whole evening yesterday on Zoom and had no trouble at all. So we didn't expect the problems that they announced to us. So I'll be glad to do that. I was just going to point out that before we were blocked out with barbed wire and all that down in Arizona at the Capitol building, we had 66 signals and 55 of those BOD4 control points operating with about 100 turnouts on them, all part of the layout, operating again in the peer-to-peer system. But it is a great discussion, and I'd like to do the whole thing and then have that discussion because I think it's really important.
I do too.
So I'm glad to set up another time.
I'll get with you again. Thank you so much for understanding.
Okay.
I'm sorry we had this problem, but those things happen. We can't control everything. So I will get with you and
Yeah, well, I'm about a mile and a half out on a peninsula between lakes up here. And, if I was 15 miles north, I'd be in your time zone because that's Michigan. So that's how far up in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, I am there right now. If I do it from Glen Ellen, I'm really solid in there. So we'll get together another time. Sorry, gentlemen, that that happened. I haven't had that kind of a problem, but as I say, we did get, unfortunately, a notice about 2.5 hours ago. I think, Jim, I sent you that exactly the text that they sent me on my phone, of all things, because it wasn't coming through on the internet.
Gotcha. Paul, thank you so much for understanding, and I'll get with you later. Thank you.
Okay.
Before I talk about the next show, Dan Cohen, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
If you could give me a call, I sent you an email with my phone number in it. If you could give me a call, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. And I apologize to everybody for tonight, but there's nothing we can do with technical issues. So I'm sorry, but I'll reschedule Paul because I do think this discussion is important, as both Phil and Paul have indicated. And I do think that it's a fascinating subject that we need to understand and be able to really have a lengthy discussion about it. So with that said, our next show is Saturday, April the 24th. With Justin Keeler as our featured modeler of custom trains. Bob Farquhar is going to do a build along again with the Blair Line kit. Gaylord Gill and Randy are doing their build along with the one kit from Bar Mills. Greg Cassidy is going to bring up the new products that are going to come to the market soon. And Paul is going to have his quick tips. So thanks so much for coming this evening. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologize again for the problems that we had. And